All right, we're now going to start Chapter 1, Lesson 2. And Chapter 1, Lesson 2 has to do with angles, measuring angles, and it's going to be things, a lot of things you're kind of familiar with, and a couple of things maybe you're not familiar with. And so to start with this, when you measure an angle, you're probably very familiar. You can measure an angle in degrees, and you're familiar with degrees, a 90-degree angle, or from geometry, probably a 30, 60, 90-degree triangle, and things like that. So something you're very familiar with. You can also measure angles with a different unit, and that other unit would be radians. And that will not come up in this chapter, but it will come up in later chapters, and it turns out for some applications, you're better off measuring angles in radians as opposed to degrees. If you have a calculator, maybe you can check the mode on your calculator, a graphing calculator. That mode was initially probably set in radians, and you had to switch it back to degrees when you're in geometry doing problems. So there's two ways to measure, just like if you measure length, you can measure it in feet or meters. There's two different systems for measuring length. There's two different ways to measure angles, degrees and radians. This chapter, we're going to worry about degrees. Okay, to begin with, you know in a full rotation, if you make, you start somewhere and you rotate completely around in a circle, you know there's 360 degrees in that rotation. Half rotation, a 180, quarter rotation is a 90-degree angle. A couple of the words you're familiar with already from algebra, pre-algebra of some time. Complementary angles, two angles, you add them up, you get 90. Supplementary angles, two angles, you add them up, you get 180. So just to practice that a little bit, we'll look at this next slide. And again, if you're good at this stuff, you feel free to skip ahead to the next part after this. But take a look at this first one. We have here a straight line, and a straight line, you know the measure of a straight line is 180 degrees. They give you this first angle here, this big angle is 7x. The little angle here is 3x. And you know if you put both angles together, look, you get that straight line, you get 180 degrees. So if you put the little angle 3x together with the bigger angle 7x, you get that 180 degrees. And on the left side, you see you have 10x equals 180, divide by 10, and look at that, we have x equals 18. So now come back and figure out the angles. Well, the big angle is 7x, so we take 7 times 18, looks like 126, so 126 degrees for the big angle. And the little angle is 3 times 18, which will give you 54 degrees. It doesn't hurt to check those two, because how much is 126 plus 54? 126 plus 54, look at that. Add it up, it equals 180, which is what you should have been expecting, because look, this makes a nice straight line right there. All right, next one, complementary angles. Complementary, look back, those are angles that add up to 90 degrees. So the same idea here. Let me just grab a different color. Let's go 7z plus 5. Try that again. That was a z, not an x. So we'll go 7z plus 5. We're going to add on a 2z plus 4. And since they're complementary, we know that's going to give us 90. Combine like terms on the left side, we've got a 9z and a 9 equals 90. Do a little algebra here, take off the 9. 9z equals 81, divide by 9, and it looks like z equals 9. Not hard to go back and sub in. We'll take 7z plus 5, but wait, z is 9. So we sub in here for the z, we put in the 9. Looks like 63 plus 5 is 68 degrees. Now our 2z plus 4, sub in the 9. Looks like 18 plus 4 is 22 degrees. And sure enough, add those two up, and they give you 90, which again is what you're expecting, because look, it said right here, they're complementary angles. All right, that's our first part. Now, we're going to get into some other measurements here, because what will happen with degrees, you might want a more accurate measure than a degree, something even finer than a degree. And so these conventions are already built in. And you might remember degrees from measuring angles, but also latitude and longitude is given in degrees. And if you want something more accurate than a degree, what they did is they took a degree, and if you want something less than a degree, they took a degree and they broke it into 60 pieces. And each of those pieces they called a minute. So a minute is 1/60th of a degree. So you take a little bitty degree, you break it into 60 pieces. Each of those little pieces is called a minute. And again, you think, well, wait, this is just like time. You are right. It is just like time. So the degree is like your hour, and then the hour you break into 60 minutes. So the degree you break into 60 minutes. The notation, you can kind of see it here, but you put one little tick mark up here, and that means degree. That also means foot. But for this notation, that means minute. I think I said degree. That means minute. So that's 1 minute. So 1 minute, you can see here, is a 60th degree. Or, the other way to say it is, 60 minutes equals 1 degree. Just like 60 minutes equals 1 hour. Okay, is that accurate enough for you? If not, we have seconds. And seconds, you take each of these now tiny little minutes and break those up into 60 pieces. Our notation for that, for seconds, is 2 little tick marks. So that's seconds now. And see if this makes sense to you. A second, 1 second, is 1/60th of a minute. But wait, we broke the degree into 60 minutes. So 60 times 60 is 3,600. So now 1 second is 1/3,600th of a degree. So you've taken a pretty small angle, 1 degree. You've broke it now into 3,600 pieces. So that's pretty accurate. Other ways of saying this, 60 seconds is the same as 1 minute, or 3,600 seconds is the same as 1 hour. And I don't know if you've ever sat in a class, hopefully not a trigonometry class, and counted the seconds, but if it were an hour class, there would be 3,600 seconds in that class. So 3,600 seconds in an hour, 3,600 seconds in 1 degree. Okay, this will come up because now angles will be given with greater accuracy than degree. We'll get things like, look at some of these. Just extend that a touch. Oops. Extended that a little too far. Here is 52 degrees, 38 minutes. Here's 7 degrees, 41 minutes, and they'd like us to add these up. Well, let's add these up. I'm going to do this vertically. Here's 52 degrees, 38 minutes. Here's our 7 degrees. We line up our degrees. We'll line up our minutes and our 41 minutes. We'll add these up, and it looks like here a 79 minutes, and over here it looks like 59 degrees. Okay, looks like a good answer, except the rule will be never leave minutes more than 60, because you have 60 minutes, isn't that a degree? So kind of carry that over to the degrees. And the same thing for seconds. Never leave your seconds more than 60. So when you have something like this, the 79 degrees, you say 79 minutes. 79 minutes is 1 degree and 19 minutes, because there's 16 minutes is the same as 1 degree. So anytime your minutes is bigger than 60, take off 60 of those, make it a degree, then see what's left. And there are still 19 minutes left. So the 59 degrees, 79 minutes really becomes 60 degrees, because look, we had this one extra. And then we have the 19 minutes left. So 60 degrees, 19 minutes will be our final answer. Let me just give ourselves a little space here. Get this out of the way. And let's try this next problem. Same thing, except we have not just degrees and minutes, we have degrees, minutes, and seconds. And I'm just going to write this slightly bigger. So 41 degrees, 16 minutes, 15 seconds. Give ourselves a little space. 32 degrees, I line up my degrees. I line up my minutes. And I line up my seconds. And just like any other addition we've learned how to do, you kind of work your way from right to left. So on the right here, it looks like 68 seconds, and hopefully that's bothering you a little bit. We'll take care of that in a minute. We add up now our minutes, and it looks like 64 minutes. And now we add up our degrees, and it looks like 73 degrees. Okay, we're going to work from the right to the left. So we're going to first start with our 68 seconds and say, wait a minute. 60 seconds is the same as 1 minute. So I'm going to take off 60 of those seconds. I'll be left with 8 seconds. and it gives me 1 more minute. So the 64 minutes becomes 65 minutes because I took off 60 seconds and it was the same as 1 minute. Now I look at those 65 seconds and say, wait, I can't have seconds or minutes bigger than 60. So the 65 minutes, I take off 60 and it leaves me 5 minutes, and those 60 minutes equal 1 degree. So now my 73 degrees become 74 degrees. So we work our way from the right and we come over to the left. So the 68 seconds, we took off 60 of those seconds. That gave us, look, an extra minute. We had 8 seconds left. Our 65 minutes, we took off 60. Look, that gave us 1 extra degree, and we were left with 5 minutes. So 74 degrees, 5 minutes, 8 seconds would be the correct answer. So it's just like the borrowing you've learned in the past, except now it's base 60. So a nice practice. All right, next one. Let's do subtraction. Here's 80 degrees. I'm going to take off 14 degrees in 31 minutes. And right now there's nothing over here for minutes. I want to subtract. And you know when you subtract, you take the top and you take off the bottom. But there's nothing up here. So how can I have nothing and take off 31 minutes? You can't do that. So come over to the 80 degrees. Let's borrow. Make it 79 degrees. And when we borrow, we're taking a degree. But we know a degree is the same as 60 minutes. So we borrow from that degree, and look, that gives us 60 minutes right here. Now we can subtract 60 minus 31, 29 minutes. And our degrees, 79 degrees minus 14 degrees, looks like 65 degrees. So 65 degrees, 29 minutes is our answer. These can also be done on calculators, but you know what? Once you get the hang of these, they're not that hard to do by hand, and it's a little better in terms of your understanding if you can do these by hand. All right, that's the first part of the video. What we'll get to next is we'll talk about what do you do if you don't like degrees, minutes, seconds. We'd rather just have decimal degrees, and that part will be coming up.